Thank you for staying with us. Now, whilst the world is making progress towards ensuring that energy is becoming more sustainable and widely available, more than 750 million Africans still have no access to electricity. Countries like Kenya, though, have gone to great lengths in meeting the United Nations Sustainable Goal number 7. My panelists, who are experts in renewable energy, will help make sense of this intricate discussion. Luke Burras is CEO of Mobile Power, and they offer pay-per-swap battery sharing networks. Interesting. Luke, thanks so much for joining us. Jenny Fletcher is CEO of Ariya, and she's speaking to us from Nairobi, Kenya, industry leader in supplying and financing clean energy. Christelle from Vuuren, director of Africa, the Carbon Trust, and they're pioneering decarbonizing for more than 20 years for businesses. And Ephantus Kamweru, he's the acting general manager, Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation, tackling subsidized electricity in rural areas. A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. Christelle, let me start off with you. And your role really is about protecting the environment, is it not? Certainly when you look at the carbon footprint and how you can mitigate those issues.
Yes, indeed. I mean, a carbon trust is very much oriented towards accelerating decarbonization of economies and acting to support the journey to net zero. And whether that's working with governments or with private sector actors and with individual entities and with grassroots operators to really drive that forward in a very kind of ecosystem and holistic way. But there's lots to be done. And the topic today is definitely one of the ones that are close to Carbon Trust's heart. In terms of the really leapfrog opportunity that there is for the African continent. Not so much from a decarbonization perspective, because it's really about climate justice for the continent, in being able to access and grow those burgeoning new opportunities for clean energy.
Fantastic. Now, we're talking about keeping the lights on in Africa, or certainly turning them on in many instances. Now, Luke, there's certain things that you're doing. I mean, we're talking about pay-per-swap battery sharing networks. This is something I've only come across when researching for this interview. Talk to us about what that is very quickly, please.
Yeah, there are 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa who don't have access to electricity. And really, Mobile Power is about bringing an appropriate technology solution to those consumers so we can get them on the first ladder of getting access to electricity. We started with our first product back in 2013, doing mobile phone charging, and today we are doing that with first access to energy. But we're also working with middle-class customers with generator replacement and e-mobility as well in capital cities, really looking at how you can decarbonize an economy as well as bringing people into that economy and into that electrified world.
Fantastic. Now, Ephantus, one of the things that we talk about is the average rate of electricity on the African continent, which is slightly less than half. I think it's at 43%. But Kenya has done a huge amount in ensuring that a lot of renewable energy, in fact, I think upwards of 80%, or in fact, it's slightly above 70% of renewable of electricity is focused on renewable energy in Kenya. How has Kenya achieved this?
Actually, thanks a lot. Kenya is it's very dynamic in the area of electrification because actually there's a lot of government support when it comes to the energy. It started back in with the Vision 2030, which was started in 2008, when there was a blueprint for energy and electrification of the rural areas across the country. And that's the blueprint which has been guiding Kenya subsequent government in electrification of rural areas, especially even using renewable energy. So we can see that there are many support in areas like policies, national development plans, collaborating with the partners, effective regulatory frameworks. All of them have played a part in making sure that Kenya is able to embrace renewable energy. In fact, Kenya government has been playing a lot of law in participating in climate changes. It has been adhering to Paris Declaration. All of them, it has been supporting them. So what I can say in short is that Kenya government has really supported promotion of renewable energy. And after all, Kenya is also a blessed country. because where it is located, it has enough sunlight. Geothermal is also available. So the government has been enhancing that energy to make sure we have clean energy by 2030. Thank you.
Now, Jenny, one of the roles that you play is that of financing clean energy. And if we look at just how much renewable energy is available to us, or how many countries have taken up renewable energy, there are a very, very small number on the African continent. Certainly not many that have done as much as Kenya. What are some of the challenges in financing clean energy, firstly, and secondly, is there a huge uptake on the continent for clean energy?
So the challenges, I'll take the first question. So challenges are really around the regulatory environment, and so international capital being comfortable financing the country risk. So, of course, you've got your normal company risk, but then on top of the company risk, you have the country risk. And some of the countries, especially the ones with the lower electrification rates, may not have a strong regulatory environment or a strong government support. And that makes financing difficult. We're on the ground, so we are comfortable financing, and certainly throughout East Africa. But we would be not necessarily comfortable financing every country in Africa. Remind me your second question.
Well, if you'll allow me, I'd like to obviously keep it moving, and I've got a question that I'd like to ask Christelle. Now, Christelle, South Africa's energy minister dismissed the notion that renewable electricity can bring an end to years of load shedding, right? So he's potentially advocating for fossil fuels. You, on the other hand, are advocating against fossil fuels because what you're fighting against is a carbon footprint. How do you marry those two, particularly in this South African context?
You asked me a complex question, I think. And so I'm not going to necessarily respond directly to Minister Mantashe's comments or the general sort of political positioning and the challenges internal to South Africa and Eskom right at this juncture, but to say that there are things that we can learn from others. And I think that this is a developing narrative, at any rate, both in South Africa and the continent, around the role that fossil fuels play in that development trajectory. The dynamics of energy economics is changing, and I think that it's also really important for us to keep abreast of the socioeconomic development agenda that has to be met. I mean, that is an imperative. So while we as Carbon Trust certainly are proponents for renewable clean and doing that as a priority and first, we are appreciative, at any rate, of the dynamics and challenges that these particular countries are situated with, and that it's not necessarily always an easy choice. Now, as I said, aside from Mantashe's comments, I think Ephantus made some comments around what Kenya has done, and that those are some lessons to be learned around security of tenure, reliable pricing mechanisms, favorable policies and incentives, and really making it attractive for investors. And I think those are lessons that others in the continent can take away in their or in development contexts for the renewable story.
Luke, final question, and I'm hoping that I can get all of you to grip in on this. Now, we've just talked about 3/4 of the continent not having access to energy, right? Luke, I believe you're doing some work in Nigeria. Why Nigeria? Is it representative of the challenges, the general challenges of the African continent? And just how do we bring light to the African continent? I mean, we talked about the amount of sunlight that Ephantus talked about, and there's sun across the entire continent.
Absolutely, and I think you can tell from my accent that I'm not African. I'm British. But one of the reasons that I've pointed my career at Sub-Saharan Africa is I think it has one of the most uniquely exciting opportunities to redefine the way in which we do energy across the globe. Traditional energy grids are expensive to run, and they were built at a time when we didn't have renewables. Renewables really have the opportunity to recast the way in which we distribute our electricity and the way in which we reach people with electricity. Nigeria stands right in the center of that. It's got a growing, young, vibrant entrepreneurial population who are looking for solutions, who are looking at the way the rest of the world works and then applying that to Nigeria. And that's really what Mobile Power is doing there. We empower local entrepreneurs with technology that's been developed in other countries and then apply it into that marketplace and really watch what people do with that and the amazing entrepreneurs that we work with who are expanding that. Okay. I think it's that grid opportunity and redefining how the grid works that's exciting about Sub-Saharan Africa.
Now, Ephantus, you've obviously been able to harness what nature has to offer. What's your advice to the rest of the continent in doing the same? I mean, you've achieved so much success in this area.
You see, like in Kenya, it is the objective. All Kenyans are equal, whether you are in off-grid areas or even the city. So the determination by the government to ensure that all Kenyans deserve to get clean energy and also access to electricity is the key goal here in our country. Because right now we are able to electrify 5,000 schools using solar system in the off-grid areas. That means even if you're in off-grid areas, you are going to have access to the power. You pay the same rate like the person in urban area because there's even government subsidy for those who are paying power in those remote areas. Although the cost for generating power there is very high when you're using the solar and also mini-grid systems. So I can say that it's a determination and to have a good national development plans, legal framework, all of them effective regulatory framework, all of them are factors which are able to drive country to have a focus and interest in energy. In any case, energy is enabler, and without energy you cannot prosper, you cannot industrialize like other countries who before used to have coal, but Kenya now is focusing on using renewable energy to develop. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I can't get Jenny or anybody else to comment on what I would have asked. But I do appreciate my panelists this evening, Luke Burras, CEO Mobile Power, Jenny Fletcher, CEO of Ariya Christelle and Vuuren, Director, Africa, the Carbon Trust, and Ephantus Kamweru, Acting General Manager, Rural Electrification and Renewable Energy Corporation. A very good evening once again to all of you, and thank you so much for your time this evening. And we were talking about keeping Africa's lights on and the advancement of renewable energy.